Good morning to one and all. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the Alumni Series October 2020, presented by CSE Alumni Association, organized by Department of CSE, School of Computing, SRMIST. We all know that our institution has a rich and cultural past. It has built lives for many students. Mr. Sanando Sarkar is one among them. He is our alumni 2014 batch. He is currently working as Dev Lead SAP Labs in Bangalore. I welcome Mr. Sanando to share his knowledge in the current technologies that he is working in. I also request him to give some insights to the juniors by sharing his experience. Now over to Mr. Sanando. Sanando, please carry on.
Yeah, uh, thank you. As ma'am introduced, I am Sanando. I passed out like 2.5 years back and started working since then at SAP Labs in Bangalore. So I was approached when I was first approached to actually talk to you. I did not expect a interface like this. So I'm sorry, I'm not very prepared for a non-interactive session, but still I'll try my best. So, ma'am, is my screen visible?
Yes, Sanando. Your screen is
Yes.
visible. You can share your screen and you can start.
Thank you. So, hmm, sorry about that, actually. So, what I want to talk about today basically is a very important and yet overlooked topic that people need to worry about. Not worry about exactly, but keep in mind during this situation, and that is adaptability. This is I know the topic looks very much like a computer science thing only, but this is actually true for everyone who is getting out of the technical graduation degree, which is BTech in anything, BCA, BSc in some topics. Uh, 1 minute, sorry. So, uh, adaptability is basically that, as you might have, like, I don't know, whoever is in third and fourth year among the audience, you might be slightly aware about the fact that much of nowadays market, nowadays work industry is not actually based on what you learn in college, but what you can learn on the go. So, as I've written here, that expertise, like if you're in college and you're an expert at coding or you're expert in some particular field, that is not really a very important attribute anymore. It's basically about how soon, how fast, and how efficiently you can learn something new. That is considered a very important attribute in nowadays. So basically what I'll be talking about is a little bit of introduction about adaptability and what it means whenever we are talking about a workplace, or the transition basically from a college to a workplace, where you basically, it's the work or the workload does not change much, except for the fact that instead of marks you're paid in money, and instead of bad marks you actually face the possibility of losing your job. Anyway, so problems faced when during this transition from college to office. It's like might not sound like very important thing, but there are actually more issues that I have observed over my time. Initiation is basically about people who are thinking that they'll start being a part of this field, or like computer science engineers, even in third year, fourth year, sometimes decide, "Ki, let's try this coding thing out a little bit and see how it works." So that's why initiation, as in how you should approach it and what you should keep in mind. And in the end, I'll be sharing some personal insights which might not be very relevant to the topic, but I think anyone and everyone should keep in mind. So I'm not sure, ma'am, how are they supposed to let me know in terms of questions?
See, at the end, the ma'am will post you the questions.
Okay, okay, understood. So, okay, so starting with adaptability. Uh, so what is adaptability basically? We can look at it from the point of view that suppose if you know one kind of technology or if you know one kind of solution, problem solving, then the thing is that you become an expert, no doubt, but you become very like streamlined. You are not exactly a very uh, high value addition to any team. You are more like a particular situational addition to that team. So adaptability is basically, which I have observed around workplaces around this market, that is that adaptability is all about being available to all kinds of new technology. It's challenging, it's quite intimidating sometimes, but then again there are a lot of people who actually find it interesting to always keep just working on something new. Like, I have a friend of mine who has changed his workplace 3 times since he started till now, which is 2.5 years. He has changed 3 times just because he was getting bored with the technology he was working with. So people enjoy or appreciate, companies in general enjoy or appreciate workers like this, people who can work like this. And in the end, say after a stint of 5 6 years, these are the best people that a startup can begin with because of their varied experience in a field of things. So as I was saying, the difference between an expert and a leader. So the person is not actually uh, sidetracked with just one kind of knowledge that he's very good with. He's a person who is a jack of all trades, and to be very to be very honest, in the current situation with any kind of technology, you don't really need to be a master. Everything is there. It doesn't take you very long. So just it's better to have your hands dirty in almost everything than having it very expert in one of them. The current IT multiverse is actually a very funny work environment, and I really enjoy it from my side. Uh, that is key. Uh, it's not a direct exchange of, suppose web development. I'm not sure how many of you are very familiar with the web development world, but it's not like a very straight exchange that this is what we want and this is what we'll give you. It's a like I told you, like there's front end, there's design, there are multiple technologies at the same time that can be used are being used with uh, multiple different facets, multiple different advantages and disadvantages. So it's all about how much you can learn, how fast you can learn, and how efficiently you can uh, carry out the process. So the second thing I wanted to talk about was the transition from college to office. It's actually sorry It's actually a very important transition, and it seems overwhelming to a lot of people. Whereas a lot of people actually enjoy this paradigm shift. I personally like the concept of being paid for what I'm doing than getting marks for what I'm doing. But there's some things that need to be kept in mind. That is that firstly, starting with challenges of initial office life. You see, office life isn't actually a very uh, it's not a very straightforward environment like the college, like where 40 students sitting in a class, they are known to compete with each other and they are competing with each other on a level ground. Now, whoever studies more, whoever gives more effort gets more marks. But you see, the workplace is a different kind of situation. A lot of people face a lot of mental pressure initially while they start working, because of the simple reason that the reward basis is not that simple. There's a bit of politics involved, there's a bit of administrative issues involved. It's a bigger mess basically. So work versus studies is basically what I was talking about earlier, is that the rewards program is a little different basically. You see, the rewards and the punishment. Like if you do well, you get good marks here. If you do bad, you get bad marks there. But in at the work situation, it becomes a little more superlative than that. That's all. Uh, Stagnancy at the workplace is something. Uh, Basically, stagnancy is a concept that came along very recently with the induction of companies such as mass recruiters and all. When you see that many people eventually end up feeling like they are stuck somewhere. I will be returning to this topic a little later, so I'll explain better then. But it's the basic concept of feeling stuck at some place where you feel like you're not proceeding with your career at the speed that you would prefer to, but then again, you don't have any option in front of you to go ahead any faster. Syllabus coding, hobby coding, and work coding. This is basically, you see, syllabus coding is restricted to, like, I'm sure all of you who are at least in third year, you will be able to understand very clearly that syllabus coding is basically about um, just 5 6 programs here and there every semester which are from that respective language or subject, like oops or data structures, something like that. So syllabus coding is a very basic thing. It scratches the surface of the water. Basically, it's not even a very important skill to have to be good at syllabus coding, but it kind of becomes a package with the rest of it. Hobby coding is something that I used to practice a lot. It's basically where competitively, or if you're into project-based coding, then you can just sit down and have a little coding session with yourself. It's just very simple. Uh, for a lot of people, it works as time pass as well, but it helps on the long run because it builds up the skill. And the main thing, like I told you, adaptability with technology is important. So hobby coding, what it does is it instills in you in a sense of algorithms which you can further continue with in the office. Work coding, on the other hand, is for those of you who are hobby coders and who love coding, and you really enjoy your programming sessions in HackerRank or whatever. Work coding is something that is entirely different. So if you really enjoy writing the code and if you really enjoy thinking about algorithms, I would suggest you might consider a post graduation or maybe a very selective job in a selective company. But otherwise, work coding is basically a very boring concept where you have a target to meet. Uh, you have a like we have something called an acceptance criteria in the software market, which is basically that you are supposed to write the code in such a way that the program is the least acceptable, like the least within acceptable limits. You don't have time or you don't have permission to proceed further or build it into something much better, even if you have a concept standing there. So that's the difference, like which is why I prefer to tell people who are very big, like who really enjoy coding. I actually inform them that it's better to pursue maybe another degree, or if you get into some very niche companies like I don't exactly remember right now, but Code Nation or some company like this. This is a very niche set of companies that actually operate with algorithmic coding even in the workplace. So okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is problems faced. So as you might like, I don't know, at your age I wasn't even thinking about all of these things, but there are a few things that you this comes to you after, like when you're feeling like you're about to graduate and you're about to start working, which is a different environment, or if you're about to start, say, higher studies, going to study abroad or inside India. So these are the four kinds of problems you'll face during that change. And that is lack of algorithmic coding knowledge, lack of project coding knowledge, lack of good grades in college, and general disinterest towards coding. So lack of algorithmic knowledge is, as I have written here, it's very common among even actually CSE students themselves as well, because the college curriculum does not actually cover much of algorithmic coding. There are few subjects, and most of the students that I have met usually just work towards a personal practice, because it's not a very common curriculum thing in India, all over India. So but the thing is, on the other hand, basic algorithmic knowledge, basic understanding of this kind of topic is actually helpful towards the college classes as well. Like it's like not exclusive of each other, but the coding in general is a superset of the entire thing. Which is why you'll see that suppose there are a lot of people from non-CSE streams who end up with a IT job, and the thing is that sometimes they have a little bit of knowledge with coding, sometimes they don't. Uh, but basically, this is one of the biggest problems that is faced during this transition. And as for a solution, there's simply no solution other than just practice. It's not very difficult. It's not very complicated. It's just a simple approach that you have to take. You just pick up a site, HackerRank, HackerEarth, pick up a site, start with the easy ones, go to the middle, medium difficulty ones, someday reach the difficult ones. And along the way, whenever you feel like you're stuck, you don't have a way ahead, there are sites such as Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow is what we use. Other than that, you have Geeks for simpler things, or for Java T Point for theoretical situations. So these are places you can just go in, and these are not like textbooks that you just open up Java T Point one evening and start reading through pages. This is the thing about coding in general, whether algorithmic or not. It's that it's a experience-based learning process. So it's like you go through one situation, you arrive at one problem, you're working with that one problem, and then you seek the solution to that problem. That is how you proceed to the next step. There is no correct order in learning these topics. There is no set rules that they should be learned before this. You, in general, the best way to learn is to come across a problem, be stuck with that problem, and eventually find out the solution to that problem. So, and the last thing I want to talk about in this topic is the balance between theory and practice. You see, at least in my batch, we came across a lot of people in the batch, a lot of students who were very good at the theory because they were good at learning things, or uh, in some cases mugging up things, and they were very good at the theory. But the problem was elsewhere. The problem is that theory can only take you to a certain distance. After that, it's all about practice. You see, like I was mentioning earlier, that opening Java T.1 fine evening and just reading through 20 pages of that, it's not very helpful approach in the end. It'll help you write down the answer if there is a theoretical question somewhere. But otherwise, I think a much better approach would be just open up HackerRank, and instead of 20 pages of Java T-Point, just solve 4 programs of HackerRank. That gives you a better, because you see the theory in these kind of things is not very implementational. Like it's not like biology that you read about the leg and the bones in the leg, or about physics where you read about a simple lever which you might have to use in some point of time based on your profession. This is something that if you read just the theory or just go through whatever theoretical knowledge is there, you will actually feel lost because you don't understand the implementation of it. It's easy, it's much better and more efficient to just go for practice. As I showed you before, the next problem is the lack of project knowledge. This is actually along with the earlier one, but actually this is even more common among people. That is, people don't actually realize what is a project environment. People don't actually understand what is a project and how you should approach that kind of knowledge. Like algorithmic coding is about writing a program to solve an issue. Project-based programming is about writing a program that executes a project. So this is a skill, I won't say skill, but this kind of expertise is actually slightly different from that of normal algorithmic coding as well. You see, this is not about whether you can write a program that has a tree or a tree structure in it or has an LSA in it. But the thing is that eh, this kind of program is might be very simple to understand, might not have any a lot of logical components. But the thing is, the niche part of this kind of project program is that it can stand. It's a standalone application. It can stand on its own, or it can just you can even set the dependencies sometimes. It's basically about where you know how to write a program that can actually set up a system that can work accordingly, that can operate on its own or react on its own to your button presses, your inputs to that program. So it's very uncommon because actually it's not part of college curriculums in India at all, once again. Secondly, it's not a very simple thing to do since many people need to think about platforms, about IDEs, about a lot of things, about implementing the software, about back end, front end. It's often like it's not very difficult, but the thing is that many people look at it as something very complicated and they just go avoid it altogether. Whereas many of my batchmates, seniors who are right now working at excellent places, or actually one of them is right now I think in Stanford. So they are actually very good in this kind of coding because, and that is appreciated because one of the most important skills that you need in the today's market you will develop by working on projects, and that is troubleshooting. Working with a lot of existing code means a lot of troubleshooting, and that is a very important skill that you develop from this. And for those of you who end up like who are right now maybe in fourth year and who are like placements have started and you don't have any project based experiences, for them actually the only thing like the only solution left is learning on the job, which actually companies are very fine with. Like most of the companies that do come for placements don't actually expect you to have a lot of project knowledge. They are very uh, they concentrate a lot on you having algorithmic knowledge, which is why you will have face a lot of questions in that regard and not in the project base. But eventually on the job, you have to learn the principles of that code, how to write the code, how to implement the code, how to troubleshoot the code, debug the code, everything. That is something you learn on the job if you're actually proceeding with a job right now. Lack of good grades is a problem that I personally faced. I'm my CGPA over 4 years was 7.6, which actually automatically it disallowed me for a lot of placement opportunities. It made it difficult for me to go to postgrad because the thing is they treat these college grades very importantly. Whether inside or outside India, your college grades are always treated very importantly. So, as you can see, plans for the future work or higher studies. This is where the situation arises that what do you do when you don't have a very good grade? Uh, what I would suggest from my side, from personal experience, is that you see, this is whenever your grades are not at a very acceptable level, I would suggest a work environment for that. Because the thing is that although or directly maybe through placements you won't get the best ones or the dream packages as SRM calls them, but eventually you'll get options that are good. And the thing is that herein comes the fact that even with like when I was sitting for the placements with the 7.6 CGPA, so what they looked for, the company I sat for, SAP, the company I was selected in, it does not actually it did not directly look for good grades or high marks as such. It went for a more comprehensive approach where they checked whether the person can actually program well in the last two topics I talked about, algorithmic and project based. So there are a lot of companies out there who are actually willing to take in candidates based on their skill around a piece of code than with their marks in college. So people suffering from like suppose if you're in third year or actually third year just started, so you still have time. But if you're in fourth year and there's like very slim chances of you making any significant difference to your CGPA anymore, I would suggest pursuing a little bit of work life right now for say 2 to 4 years approximately. And the thing is, I will come to this topic why it's important, but that's the thing is that as an immediate solution for low grades, if you're actually suffering from low, I'm not talking about low grades per se, but the thing is that not acceptable or not satisfactory to you. Okay, so or the company cutoffs that come to the college. So in that situation, you really don't have anything to do much, any options in hand. If you can score something within college placement, that's great. If you can't, then you can just proceed out to outside the college placement as well. Look for off-campus solutions. Up to you. Just keep thinking about these solutions. There's no use just thinking keep nothing will happen now. Just better to just consider the next step at every run. And the reason why I'm pushing you towards a work life immediately instead of possibly going for post graduation, except if you're going for MTech or something like that, then it really doesn't make a difference because your gate score is what matters and everything. But if you're going for an MBA or even an MS outside India, they will treat your college grades very importantly, and that might be a difference between you getting selected and you getting not selected by any college. So the reason why I'm pushing you towards a work life is simply because you see, work experience is something that solves the problem of low grades. Uh, you work in your core stream, like being a CS engineer. If you work in an IT field, a company working as a developer or something, you work for 2 3 years, and this experience will actually offset your low grades. And what will happen is this will be taken into consideration while you're applying to MBA like management colleges inside India or any college outside India. So it becomes a very important factor then that you might not have been a very good student, but you are a very good professional of that field. So that starts making a difference. Many of people in my batch as well, I notice this problem firsthand is that there's a general disinterest towards coding where you feel like that it's not your cup of tea. You feel like you don't want to pursue it. You feel like it's too much work. You feel like it's difficult to understand, or you feel like it's very expensive to start. Well, I would say that, like, as I've written, for the first point I'll have to say is give it a try. You don't have to start with a very high level code or a very difficult algorithm to solve. No, just start from the basics. Look at it in such a way that it's art. It's not actually, it's not like studying, it's like painting. So you're not expected to draw an entire human being on your first day. You start with one finger, you start with one hand, then you proceed to an arm, then the shoulder. It's as simple as that. there are many places on the internet where you can start. You don't even need paid sessions or paid courses. There are many places on the internet where you can just start, sit down, start from the basics, just print a hello world for all anyone cares, and then proceed as you go. See if you find it interesting. Many people I know spent 2 3 years of college not being interested, not feeling like doing it, and then in third or fourth year of college they start giving it a try out of, I don't know, curriculum compunction, or maybe trying to get some preparation for the placement session, and then they end up loving it. They end up loving this experience of problem solving and uh, implementing something that actually, like, it's not just something you write. It's not like an answer sheet where you are write the answers there, submit it, and hope to get marks. It's something that you can write and run, and in front of you, you see the result of what you've done. Difficulty in grasping the simple thing that I've mentioned earlier as well is that the more you do, the more you learn. It's not always about opening up a tutorial website and reading through it. Just keep solving problems. Keep writing answers. Wherever you think that your code knowledge is not sufficient enough, just write a little bit of algorithms. Wherever you see a problem, you write an algorithm that you think is there. It's valid for that. After that, what will happen is you yourself will see that slowly you understand what a snippet of code does or how it is used. And that is where the game starts changing. So, thirdly, a lack of implementation understanding. You see, like I was mentioning earlier, is comparing to a question paper, you can write all sorts of answers to the question paper. You see a question, you write an answer to it, you feel like that's it. But the situation arises that while writing about, say, like we had a subject called microprocessors. So, taking that as an example, so while writing about what an 8085 microprocessor does, we often come across the sensation or the thought process that what is this really going to do in real life? Like, what is the utility of knowing the pin diagram of a 8085 microprocessor? How does it help? And to be very honest, it really doesn't after you pass out of college. It's more of a college thing where you need to learn a certain standard set of topics. But the thing about code is that you never actually think about what is the implementation, because the right way to code is to see the implementation in front of you. Now, if you're printing a pattern of 1 2 3 4 5 on 5 different lines, then truly that does not have any real world implementation as well. But at least it's not something that it's not visible to you. It's something that you are writing and you are implementing in front of you. You might not feel like it's a very logical outcome or it's something that will be used in any industry, but that's too much to ask for. But the thing is that you'll be able to see what you did and see what your piece of code is reacting like to your input. And lastly, if none of this works and you still feel a general disinterest towards coding and you see that you're not really feeling it or not really finding any kind of, I don't know, inclination towards learning more or doing more, then it's a very good time to consider changing streams. And this is comparatively convenient for a CSE student, because a lot of things nowadays, a lot of post graduation, a lot of streams in post graduation actually prefer computer science undergrads, because as you can understand, like even if you are doing in automobile, mechanical, everything now deals with microcomputers and microchips. So if you don't like coding, you can move to a more mechanical line of work or a more electrical line of work, and still you will be a very important asset because, like I said, colleges nowadays prefer computer science undergrads for a lot of their post-graduation programs. So feel free to change stream if you don't like coding, because if you really don't feel like coding, or if you're really not uh, trying it hard enough or learning it properly, then this is a stream you will really not last in. That's the issue. For those of you, I'm not sure what kind of audience is there for this, so I'm not sure if you are third year, fourth year, first year, second year, or all of them. So, initiation is something that is actually a challenge which I used to see with my batchmates as well, is that a lot of questions, a lot of worries actually hit the candidate together at once. You can just open up Geeks for Geeks right now and be overwhelmed by how much there is to learn. Or you can just open up something like Coursera or Tutorials Point and see that how many languages that there to learn. And all of this is quite overwhelming. So the thing is that there's a very simple solution to this problem, and the solution is that pick one of your choice, pick one and stick to it. I would suggest if you're doing it for the first time, if you don't have any prior expertise in any language or coding, then I would suggest sticking to the basics, C++, Java, maybe a little bit of JavaScript, Python. Like that's the height you can go, but don't go for R or something like that. That won't help right now. So the basic point is that if you're actually starting coding now, then all you have to do is just pick one, C++, Java, JavaScript, Python. Once you have selected one of them, you will find enough matter on the internet. Like this generation, I really won't accept it if you say that you don't know where to learn from in the internet. But even if you are facing issues, start from the very basic places. Open tutorials point, look it up. Open HackerRank, you have options to code in all of these languages. Change your language code. Just select one, go ahead with it. Get the hang of writing code. Get the hang of implementing code. Once you have it, changing languages, changing technologies won't be that big an issue anymore. Once you are familiar with the processing of one of them. Uh, what language to learn? Like I said, just look it up on the internet, pick one, stick to it. Sorry. Sorry about that. Uh, how to learn? How to learn is something that is, like I mentioned all over this session today, actually. Just simply open up any one of the coding websites, competitive coding websites, start learning, start doing the programs wherever you face issues. Open up Stack Overflow, open up Geeks for Geeks or Tutorials Point, anything, and just find out the problems to the solutions to the problems that you need. Uh, where to practice? As I said, I would suggest starting with HackerRank or HackerEarth. That is mostly the best places to start, and for a while that's the best place to stay as well. Eventually you will find out. I forgot the name of this very important website. But eventually you will find out more important places. And actually, for all intents and purposes, unless you're a really someone really interested, someone who really wants to competitively code, unless you're one of them, it's very fair to just stay to HackerRank, because the highest levels of difficulty that you find there are often enough to get you through to postgrad colleges or into jobs. How long does it take to learn? This is actually a question that doesn't have an answer. There's no answer to how long, because I know people who are working in this industry who have been working with JavaScript for 17 years and still they are still learning. There's no end to this kind of thing. You just keep learning and learning and learning over time. It just depends on where you want to see yourself after a while. Do you want to see yourself as someone who is considered an expert, or do you want to see yourself as someone who just gets by? It's all up to you, depending on how you want to proceed. But the thing is that learning speeds and all are different for different people. So there's no exact answer to this, and there is no end to learning in this kind of field. The question of is it worth it or not actually has two aspects. The first aspect I would say is that are you enjoying it? Because if you're doing it as a drab, then really coding is not worth it, because it's not something that's meant to be done as a drab. Whereas the second aspect is, if you're talking about, say, like you don't mind it, you wouldn't mind coding, but the thing is that you're talking about, is it worth it in terms of career prospects or ways ahead in your job or workplace or post-graduation college? Then I would say it absolutely is, because once again, because of two things. Number one, coding generally instills in you a very basic problem solving mentality. You don't It's not just about being able to print a pattern or to check whether a string is palindrome or not. It's about developing a mentality of problem solving. Uh, that is now the first one. The second one is that the you see, sitting down, writing code, changing a little bit of code from previous existing legacy code, as they call it. Legacy code refers to any kind of uh, program code that is existing for a while now. So all of this, like people work on this, like people of my stream, like CSE, my batch, they actually work heavily on this kind of stuff. But you see that the fresh developments, the new developments, and in the end, the expertise tags and the importance is always given to those people who are better at coding. Because the thing is, someone who needs help to make a change in code is not as valuable as someone who can give you a few options of how he can change the code. So if you're looking for, is it worth it or not on the long run, I would say it amazingly is. But the thing is that even if you're hoping to go for an MBA outside for after say 1 2 years of work experience, it's very much enjoyable, very much beneficial as well to you, to just have a couple of years of work experience under your belt, and because of that, the learning how to code, learning how to handle code is actually something that will eventually pay off. Uh, Moving on to some personal experiences, like these are very uh, not very important, but these are very niche things that you need to keep in mind while working or deciding what to do after graduation. Competition in the workplace is something that actually is a little surprising, is a little startling for everyone initially, because the thing is that it's something that's hitting you new. Uh, it's different from competition in a college classroom. So there's a lot of politics involved, there's a lot of favoritism involved, and although a lot of that happens in college as well, but it's actually much more problematic in the workplace. So competition is something that you'll eventually get used to, and it's actually very healthy to be a part of competition rather than being intimidated by competition. Stagnancy is something that it happens to a lot of people. Like I mentioned earlier, stagnancy is all about feeling stuck, feeling like you don't have a way ahead, feeling like you want to grow faster as a professional, as a careerist, but you don't actually have a way of growing. You don't have a solution of growing. Y- You don't have a way ahead, and you are stuck where you are. Higher studies as a perennial solution. Actually, the thing is, one of the best answers to stagnancy is higher studies. You see, it might not improve your situation a lot. You might feel stagnant even after higher studies. But the thing is that once you're done with, say, another degree or a little bit another course or any kind of studies, higher studies, you can actually set aside the study spectrum for a while and concentrate completely on work. And this helps because not only will you be more qualified then, but you'll be able to uh, co- put your full focus into work at that point of time, which helps a lot of people grow a lot as a careerist. Uh, Higher studies, the thing is that now you might feel stagnant or you might not. And when you're not feeling stagnant, even then you might have this thought process that whether or not I should go for higher studies. So that is where this thing comes in. It's called the golden factor for earning. So the golden factor for earning is very simple. It's that normally personally, you should be satisfied at 3.5 times your work experience, which means someone who is working for 2 years should have around a 7 LPA package. Someone who's working for 3 years should have like a 10.5 LPA package. It's basically about how the number of years of experience you have into 3.5. That should be your earning at any given point of time post 2 years. Like this is, you cannot make this calculation before 2 years because at 0 years of experience, then it's zero. So 2 years and onwards, you'll have to consider that 3.5 is a very good place to be standing at that point of time. Ideally, people consider that 5 to 7 is a very good situation, and you should consider not going into higher studies immediately, because if you are at a 5 to 7 ratio, at a 5 to 7 factor at 2 years experience, your career is going too well to actually give a pause in between and proceed to studies. If you're going 3.5, below 5 to 3.5, then you can consider it. If you're below 3.5, you should definitely leave your job and immediately go for higher studies. Like I said, 3.5 to 5, it's fine. You can consider either. You can try changing your job, working in a different company, working harder, maybe just changing technologies for a better opportunities. 5 to 7, you should consider that your job is going pretty well and you can probably grow faster. It's all about growing faster as a professional. So you might even grow faster continuing your job. So 5 to 7, you should stick to it. 7 and up, definitely you should not leave your job and just keep working. The moment you see that at 2 years you're 7 and up, at 3 years you're falling down to 6, at 4 years you reach a below 5 number, that is when you think that now you can change. It's all about every year you have to look at your current earning and you should compare it to the golden factor. Simply thinking, where am I? 3.5, 5, 7, where am I? Accordingly, you should decide on what your next step will be. Difference between immediate higher studies after some years of experience under your belt. Uh, f- in my batch, particularly, as I have noticed, there is only one field that actually does not count personal work experience, and that is going for an MTech through GATE. That seems to be the only like the only major post-graduation option that actually does not take into consideration what kind of work experience you have or whether you have any at all. Other than that, I've seen that whether it's an MBA inside, a management degree inside India, management degree outside India, even an MS outside India, everywhere a work experience is always treated importantly, because the studying or the course matter of these courses is not similar to that of an MTech. You're not given a 500-page notebook about levers and told to learn about it. It's all about, you're given project-based work, you're giving practically usable work. So that is why people prefer to see someone who knows how to handle themselves in a workplace. So it depends on where you're going. Suppose inside India, I think 2 years, IIT, IIMs and most of the other management colleges give you full marks for work experience at the end of 2 years. If you're going for outside India, like maybe even Ivy League or somewhere in the US, then 3 years is the ideal uh, work experience required. Like 2 years also they'll allow you to apply, but 3 years is the ideal one where your experience score goes to full. So that is something you need to consider if you're even if you're feeling stagnant or you're feeling like there's no way ahead right now. This is something you should keep in mind, that sometimes it's okay to just let go for a year, and just even if you're not satisfied, even if you're not enjoying your job a lot, you can either look for a change or you can just stick it out for a year or and try applying to elsewhere. Uh, so that was my last slide in the presentation. Please feel free to contact me. I've shared my contact details here. If I get any other source of contacting you, then I can share this there as well. Please feel free to WhatsApp me or mail me in case you feel like asking anything or there are any questions that you may have related to this topic or this session. I'll be happy to respond to other of you. Uh, thank you. Hello?
Chat box, you can see and share your answer.
Okay, okay, okay. Uh, the thing is that as for latest technologies that are really needed, thing is that there are no technologies that you can singly point out and say that these are really needed in the industry. Uh, if you look at the market today, it's so varied. It's so there are so many options, and every kind of technology has one drawback that another technology is solving. So the thing is that I would say that on a very majority basis, people who are sitting for placements right now, uh, JavaScript is particularly important right now because of its ease of use across multiple platforms and how easily it can be used to implement even very complicated topics, complicated projects, and something like that. That is why JavaScript and Java, both of them are actually considered the two most important technologies in the current market. But then again, someone who's working with Python, someone who really likes C++, or even C, if someone really enjoys it, there is place for everyone. Like anyone and everyone can actually make a place for themselves in this market. Uh, so time management, how to prepare. So that time management is something that is really not possible in college because the thing is, it's all about if I'm not sure who the audience is, but if you're in third year, then you really have a lot of time to work with. If you're in fourth year, then I would suggest just start working whatever little bit you can, and it's all about experience. What you have to show in the placement interview is basically how much code you have worked around with, like how much you have handled, how much you have changed or improved or even made errors with. But the thing is, how much of code you have looked through and changed. Many people choose to share their GitHub repositories, which contains all the codes they have written. Many people have project codes there, many people have algorithmic codes there, but you need to have some sort of existing experience with programs that you need to show. And for placement interview, I would suggest that most of the companies, at least like even 2 years ago when I was sitting for placements, most of the companies actually prioritize algorithmic coding a lot because it gives them a sense of how good you are in problem solving. So it's not about how well you know data structures, it's about how well you can solve a problem. And then eventually in the work life, in the work environment, nobody really cares whether you can find out if a string is palindrome or not. It's all about whether you can implement code by yourself or not, and whether you can see mistakes when you can detect mistakes when you see them. As for internships, the thing is that this is a really big issue with BTech students, particularly. Internships are truly a challenge. So I would suggest that whoever can, if you can place contacts, if you can use your parents' contacts, brother, sister, cousin, anyone, that is the might sound like a shortcut, but that's actually the best way to get an internship. Because as you can understand that even fresh graduates from colleges, see, the companies basically use interns as a very cheap source of labor, to be very true. So basically, you are someone they need to pay a lot less than an employee, and they can make you work a bit for that. And at the end of the day, after the 2 months of internship, you are just happy to get that paycheck of a little, I think, say, I don't know how much, but you're happy to get that stipend, and then a certificate which says that you haven't had an internship with that company. But the thing is that getting into internships is truly a challenge because companies don't really need interns nowadays. And but on the other hand, there are lakhs and lakhs of CSE students out there from thousands of colleges who really feel the need for an internship. So, like I said, the most popular solution is use a contact, get into it. The second solution is that the second most common way my batchmates got into internships is actually be active on LinkedIn. It helps a lot. Be active on LinkedIn. Actually, I'm not myself, but as a piece of advice, it helps a lot. You can connect with a lot of people. That's how I got my internship as well. I think I had to do one at the winter of third year. I'm not sure what the rules are right now, but winter of third year, that's how I got my internship as well. Just be active on LinkedIn, keep posting, like whatever. Whenever you feel like you're getting a little bored, you go to Facebook or Instagram and post on someone's picture, right? So all you have to do is see here, follow big people. You'll see that they often put up technology updates, they put up company organizational updates, and just participating in that, uh, just being active on LinkedIn often helps you. But in the end, it's all about asking, because the thing is that no one is willing, no one is actually excited to give you an internship because, like I said, they don't need interns. It's all about just making contacts and eventually uh, getting someone to actually agree to give you an internship. Other than personal contact, actually, personal contacts is how most of the people do it anyway. But other than that, this LinkedIn is a good way to get internships. And other than that, I'm not really familiar with any other. I'm not very much senior to whoever is listening to this. So it's not like I have some secret solution that you guys don't. But that's the thing. That's the best way I know to approach it. Otherwise,
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sanando. It was a very informative session. Thank you for accepting our invitation. So, on behalf of our team, I thank each and everyone who made this session a very successful one. Thank you. Thank you all.
thank you, ma'am. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.